everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Breakthrough with your host, me, Tess Timmons. Today's episode is about Fund for Teachers. Whether you're a teacher yourself, a philanthropist, you own a nonprofit and or company, or want to, this episode is right up your alley. Pull up a chair and join the conversation. Like, subscribe, and share the message of this episode with people you know. It's going to inspire you. Today's guest is Stephanie, the Chief of Staff for Fund for Teachers. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to the audience about what Fund for Teachers is. I was able to be chosen last year for the proposal, and the mission statement that you have for teachers and affecting community is so beautiful that I would just love to reach as many people as possible, and donors, of course, to keep this growing. So thank you for your time today.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share.
So the first question I want to ask you is if you could explain to us what Fund for Teachers is, how it benefits teachers, and who can apply. I've got librarians, counselors, even admin asking me if they can join. And then, of course, we'll get into like the proposal due date and what a proposal is.
Sure. Fund for Teachers is a national nonprofit, and we award grants to pre-K through 12th grade teachers for self-designed professional development. That kind of sounds boring, probably if you're not a teacher, but so for your non-educator listeners, I want them to sort of think about their own professional development opportunities they're given, conferences, workshops, travel, whatever it is they want to learn, to help them do their job better. Teachers are not always afforded those same opportunities that other professionals are given. So in education, professional development is very top-down. Your principal or your admin or your district might say, this is what we want you to learn. This is how we want you to learn it. And you have to do it now. And there's very little choice for you in that. So what Fund for Teachers does is we turn that completely upside down on its head. And we say, no, the teacher knows best what their students and their school communities need. And so we ask you to tell us, what is it that you need to learn to be a better teacher? What's going to help you reach your students in a better, more authentic or creative way? What kind of things are your school community asking of you? And you can write a proposal to us to ask for the funding to do it.
That is magnificent, and something that I really think is beautiful is that you really do honor teachers, that we have gone to school, we are professionals, and that we know internally what's best because we're working with the students every day. So thank you so much for that opportunity. I think there's so many schools that are funded in different ways and have lack of funding. And so teachers aren't able to really get the professional development that they desire and need. Yeah. So it totally fills that void.
Yeah.
When we're looking at like who can apply, how do you decide that?
Sure. So our grant is open to pre-K through 12th grade teachers in the U.S., the continental U.S., and Alaska and Hawaii. You have to have taught for at least 3 years. You have to spend 50% of your time providing direct instruction to students. And we ask that you have the intention of returning to teaching in the consecutive school year. I know at the beginning you asked about maybe librarians or counselors or admin. We're less concerned with what your title is as long as you're providing or meeting that 50% instructional time. So you're providing direct instruction to groups of students. Typically, admins don't really fit that. So I'm sorry, admins out there listening, but you could be a counselor in an elementary school. Generally, they actually teach classes. Librarians, we find, teach enough time. Interventionists. It's highly dependent on your individual position or your school or district. But as long as you're meeting that 50% of instructional time, you are eligible.
And that makes a lot of sense because when we write those proposals, and again, as someone who was chosen last year, when I was writing that proposal, there are certain questions that are asked where we are going off on our journey, gathering in information, and then how is it going to directly affect change within our students and also the community that we're serving, which I think is beautiful because that's really how we make the world a better place. Yeah.
I think that makes, in any environment, when you have the support of a community and stakeholders, and so that's why we ask about that, because we often also find that teachers are in isolation in their classroom. And in some environments, they don't even get to share what they're doing with their peers on their campus. So we really encourage teachers to look at parents, the school community, their students, even for how a project like this could impact them. And so I think that community aspect is really central to what Fun for Teachers does.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Also, that you allow teachers to work together on these proposals. Can we talk a little bit about like when a proposal starts, the due dates, and who can join it, and what do you win?
Sure. So, Fun for Teachers grant opens annually on October 1st. This year it's due January 23rd, so you have a good amount of time still. I think if you start by Thanksgiving, you can really be successful. I know that you started later and you still did it, but I really don't encourage people to wait. But eligible applicants can apply for up to $5,000 as an individual. Or like you were alluding to, we also have a team option. So for up to $10,000, teams of 2 or more eligible teachers can apply for a fellowship together. And again, in that community aspect, it doesn't have to be a teacher that is on your campus. It could be a teacher in your district. It could be a teacher in your state or city, even another state. As long as they're eligible, you can apply together as a team.
That's really cool because you're starting to bridge different districts, different states together. And then we're also not thinking in that cellular thought. If we look at like Norway, Finland, Sweden, even when they have student teachers, they put 3 of them together in a classroom so that they remember and remind them to not work alone in isolation, even though we are as a part of an entrepreneurship, but that creates great collaboration. I also noticed when I was gone on my trip to Costa Rica that I met other students and other schools. And so that creates a bridge of how do my students get to meet theirs as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then when we're looking at the proposal, are there any tips that you, well, I think what you're saying is very important, that you can start now and that process should be used to give you time. Any tips as far as writing the proposal or what we're doing?
Sure. I think that starting early would be my number one tip. It's not so much that the proposal writing itself is necessarily arduous. I mean, I'm not a good writer, and I would say that it probably wouldn't take me that long to write the proposal. It's doing the research and getting the details that you need to come up with your plan, because our selection committee is made of educators, so past grant recipients like yourself, maybe a district admin or a principal or someone in that kind of position. So people who are familiar with the educational landscape or what it's like to be in a classroom. But then we also invite our donors or just community members who are genuinely interested in what's happening in their community. And so think of those people as someone who has not been in the classroom probably since they were a student. And so they really need that kind of detail and context. That sort of comes, we talk about it like no big deal, but if you think about a non-educator, it takes a little bit more time to write for them and explain things for them, and making sure you make your best case in a way that they can understand. So time and detail are really the most valuable, I think, to the process. But the second thing I would say, in addition to that, is use the resources that we give you. We give you our scoring criteria. So it's kind of like an open book test, if you will, like you were telling your students, you can use that criteria anytime you ask somebody else to proofread for you. And going back to who's on the committee, I would suggest using both educators and non-educators to give you feedback, to make sure that they understand what it is that you want to learn and why it's so important, because it's only going to make your proposal better. And that takes time. So it all goes back to that time component. So if you could start now, I think you have a really good chance at presenting your best proposal and best self to the committee.
I think all of that feedback is really important. You can also, as a teacher, go on, well, as everyone, we can go onto your Instagram and see past recipients. While we were all gone this summer, there was a slew of information of where all the teachers went and what impact they were having. For myself, when I found out about their proposal, I was reading this book, and it's called Stealing from the World's Best Schools by Keith Ballard. I always wanted to change that title to borrowing or learning, but I was really inspired by Keith's book. And so I ended up calling him and wanted to talk with him. Well, first I emailed him, then we had a phone call. I was in the airport. It was like December 24th. I was flying home to go see family, and he called my phone. I was so surprised. As we got to talking about his brilliant book of traveling to 171 schools that are all outperforming the United States, he told me that he was a Fund for Teachers recipient. And so when we started talking about that, he shared the ideas of his proposal and letting me understand what it was. And so then I applied as well. It took me about 3 weeks to determine about 2 weeks to determine which country I wanted to go to. Now you can stay in the United States, you can stay within your own state, or you can travel to anywhere within the world. So that was the hardest part for me, was choosing where. But my school went through a Blue Zone certification process, Gavilan View Middle School. And so then I started to curb and decide where could I go for Blue Zone. Also, majority of the students that I work with, it's 90% Latino population. And we also have Mixteco indigenous to the Mexican, or indigenous to Mexico language as well. So it could help me to learn more Spanish. So then I started to curb like what countries or continents I wanted to go to, and then landed on Costa Rica. I thought a beautiful part of the proposal is also the budget and being very specific about it. I actually ended up sharing all of the information with my students because I want them to understand that when they're talking to me, oh, you're so lucky to go here or there. It's not about luck at all. It's about planning, preparation, time, and money management. And so it was also a beautiful tool to show them. And just like we do with our students of showing like a scaled rubric, that you guys also provided a rubric for us as well. Would it be out of bounds if I offered my services to edit or view someone's proposal after they've written it? Is that allowed, Stephanie?
Yeah, I definitely encourage people to find a fellow. Like if you have access to someone like you who's been successful at it, I always advise them to find someone specifically like that who could review their proposal. Because one of the things that we see the most in the process is, and you probably can attest to this, is in those 3 weeks that you were just doing that research, you probably learned so much. And more than you probably expected to just through the process. But then when you get to wherever your fellowship is or wherever you're going to learn, you learn so much more than you could have ever anticipated in even all the preparation you did. And having somebody with that kind of hindsight to be able to look back and say, keep yourself open to these opportunities, or have you considered these other modes of thinking? I think that's super helpful to applicants. And if they don't know someone who's been through that process or have access to someone like you, it's sometimes something they don't think about. Because they're just in that one moment. But the fellowship can be this really big thing. And what we also hear, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, but if you don't get it, we hear so often, I learned so much just doing the process that I'm going to make this happen even if I don't get the grant, or I'm going to keep trying till I get the grant. And so, yes, totally. If you're open to people asking for help, I think that people should take advantage of that. We do say you have to write the proposal yourself, but it does not hurt to have somebody, especially someone experienced, to look at it and give you feedback.
Yeah, that's great. And if you didn't get chosen, don't forget you can try again. And also, like you're saying, a lot of people had already planned on their trips, and then that 5,000 was helping them get to their journey, but it wasn't all of the money that they spent if they were going to Asia or Europe or so forth. Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful process. I would also love the opportunity as far as giving back to eventually be a member that like reads the proposals and is able to grant some to others. I bet that feels really good. It's like you guys are passing presents out to people all the time. It's beautiful.
Believe me, we'll reach out to you. We need more readers than we can ever get. So we'll definitely reach out to you for that. And it is probably one of the most inspiring things you'll do all year. And we do it at the beginning of the year. So I like to encourage people to participate because it really sets this inspirational tone for the year. Because the things that teachers just imagine and dream up for themselves and their students is so awe-inspiring. And I've been at Fund for Teachers for this coming year will be my 20th year.
Mhm.
I could see the same project, over and over again, but it's never really the same because the person proposing the project is different and no two people even approach the same thing in the same way. And so I am continuously inspired. And so we really do encourage our past grant recipients or any community members who are interested in what's happening in their schools and communities to volunteer to read. And if a donor is on the edge of, I'm not really sure this is what I want to give to, let me give you 2 proposals and you will be hooked and you will want to make this happen in your community.
Yeah, I strongly agree. I shed tears of joy watching on Instagram where all of the different teachers went, the impact that they had, not only of bringing information back, but also for their own soul and learning from other people around the world. It was beautiful. So that leads into our next section about like how long has Fund for Teachers been around? Does the original mission differ from where it is today? And you spoke about joining like over 20 years ago, you say? That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And we're kind of alluding to already, but like why you believe in it and why you keep working there. I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
Sure. So Fun for this will in 2025 will be our 25th anniversary. So we're very, very grateful to have had this opportunity to impact nearly 10,000 teachers. We've awarded just over $37 million in those 25 years. And so we have hopes to do it for another 25.
Yeah.
Our mission has not, I will say it hasn't really changed. I think it's sort of evolved. The original intent was just to bring the world to teachers because teachers don't have these opportunities so often to go out into the world, whether that's their own backyard or like you went to Costa Rica, and bring that back to their students because students don't have the opportunities to do these things. And you're the first responder to them in all ways. So thinking about that phrase, first responder. Obviously, over time, as the educational landscape changes, as what people are interested in changes, what teachers are interested in changes, we sort of evolved to that. But the mission itself remains the same: invest in teachers to reach the most students in school communities.
That's great. And so when we're thinking of starting our own nonprofit, or if I'm a donor wanting to donate to you, it's really beautiful that you have such a clear and concise mission. And I would say it's working. It's beautiful how it's working. Yeah.
It's
And
very
so, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it seems very simple. I think a lot of people are like, well, that's it. And it's like, it's really bigger than that because when you make people feel respected and honored, I think that impacts everything that they do and how they continue to seek out additional opportunities as an educator. We see in a lot of our grant recipients, they say, I did this thing first. I did Fund for Teachers first. And now I see this whole world of opportunities and how that's changing their schools and their classrooms. That's what we want to do because we know that teachers are leaders. And so that has helped us sort of evolve what we're doing over time. And it's more than just professional development. It's more than just, how you make someone feel. We've actually done some research and find that Fund for Teachers fellows stay in the classroom longer than their peers who did not receive a fellowship. They generally have more positive outlook on teaching than those who didn't receive the fellowship. I could go on and on about the benefits of receiving a grant like this. And we are very humble in that you do all the work. It's not us. We're just the vehicle that gets you to see what an awesome professional you are. And you just need that little bit of encouragement and these resources for that to happen. So it's not really about us. And how we, as you asked earlier, like how do we continue to evolve is through the ways that we've grown in the last 5 years. Like the pandemic really, like I think all organizations, we had to look inward and say, what else can we do? Because this is great. There's so much more we could be doing. And so now for you, Tess, in particular, as a past recipient, we have another grant opportunity just for our past fellows. We have many other leadership opportunities. We have an educator advisory council. The other grant that we offer is called the Innovation Circle Grant, and that is actually led by past recipients as well. So those are the ways that you can continue to participate in Fund for Teachers and sort of how our mission has evolved but it's all still the same. It's still investing in teachers. It's just how we're investing in different and new ways.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see all the different branches of how you continue to feed into teachers and help them within believing in themselves and staying empowered. And like you're saying, if we stay in the classroom and we have high positivity, that's going to reach all of the children and all of the parents as well. So we're really taking that positive feeling and expanding it throughout our community. Yeah, that is beautiful. If I'm a donor, how do I give to Fund for Teachers? How do you find donors? And yeah, how do you pitch if I'm trying to open up my own nonprofit? How do you do all of these things?
There's no one answer to that. It's really dependent on the donor themselves. We receive a lot of support from individual donors, so just people who find us and give on our website. $5, $10 at a time can really add up. You get, not all of our grants are $5,000, but think about if one person's gift could pay for the course you took in Costa Rica, or one person's gift could pay for you to get there. So it doesn't have to be a big, huge donation to make a difference in a nonprofit, but what I would say to other nonprofit leaders is you just have to ask. And how you ask will evolve depending on who you're talking to. We also receive support from, in addition to individuals, but other educational organizations. So we have, I think right now we're up to about 6 partners across the country who are already working with teachers, but use Fund for Teachers as a vehicle to reach more teachers or to, they see gaps in their own organizations of, we need something that shows we respect teachers. We need something that's going to keep teachers coming back to our schools. And so Fund for Teachers is a great way to do that. So we may work with an organization like that, or you may have someone who really wants to make a big impact in their area and they want to give just to their city or just to their state, and they make a more meaningful, larger impact. And all of that is relationships. So I would say, if to other nonprofit leaders, it's about building and maintaining relationships, keeping a pulse on, what people are doing in and around whatever your industry is in education. It's really hard right now. I mean, I'm telling you, you know that probably better than anyone. It's not an easy time for teachers. It's not an easy time for education, but there are people who are committed to keeping, teachers in the classroom and keeping students learning as much as they can on the cutting edge, competing with other countries like Finland and, all the Asian countries, because we send teachers to study there to learn that. But there are people in our communities who are interested in investing. And so you can do that through our website. You can reach out to our executive director. If you're another nonprofit who works with teachers, we even just love information sharing. Right now, we're trying to reach more teachers of color, and we're also trying to reach teachers in rural communities. And that doesn't mean any exchange of dollars. It just means exchange of information and ideas. And so if you have something you'd like us to share and we can share about our fellowship, that's also a capital that I think a lot of nonprofits don't think about. Is it may not be dollars, but who you know and what information you can share is also super valuable to nonprofits.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. I also noticed that on the website, Fund for Teachers is giving specific times for people of color to meet together to work on their proposals, which I think is it's just really beautiful. Yeah. So I really like, in the spirit of like Thanksgiving, we've got the holidays coming up. I think that it's beautiful, Stephanie, what you mentioned. You don't have to have $1 million to be a donor or a philanthropist. You could give $5, $10 if I already have all of my flatware, all of my dishes. I don't need anything else, right? So I could even ask others to donate in my name to Fund for Teachers instead of a gift. And I think that really speaks a lot as well, because as teachers, we know that we are always taking money out of our own pocketbook and giving it back to our students, but we could also ourselves, like I've already been a recipient, I could donate money as well. So definitely I will put a link to your website in the show notes and make sure that people understand where they can donate. I think that it would be such a beautiful way to give this year to educators and to the world. Because I really do believe that Fund for Teachers is making the world a better place. Like, I strongly believe that. When we look also at, you talked about all these beautiful pathways for the recipients to join in new and enlightened ways. You also have your own podcast as well, Fun for Teachers does. Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
Um,
Where can we find that platform?
sure, you can find it on anywhere you listen. The show is called Fun for Teachers, the podcast. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in applying this year to give it a listen. I know sometimes ideas seem so big and you think, oh, but that was such a great idea, but what are they doing when they get back to the classroom? The podcast is really the story of what happens when you return to your classroom. So what meaningful changes are you making? Always leading up to the application, we try to do a few episodes to help potential applicants get sort of through the thought process of how did a fellow like you come up with the idea and then how it actually played out. So it's a terrific resource, not only for applicants, but donors. So if a donor was like, what really happens? This just sounds like too good to be true. I think the
Yeah,
podcast is just the best place to really hear directly from teachers and fellows like you of what the impact actually is.
that's awesome. Yeah, after coming back from Costa Rica, my school, I was on the Blue Zone committee. We had people from Texas come up and that were Blue Zone certified, and our school became certified. We've been also looking at the food at our school. So, for example, we have like certain breads that are given to our students in the morning that have a lot of like white flour in them. So, can we change out some of that white flour and put protein in instead? And then also creating my podcast is part of it as well. I wanted to be able to reach a lot of people and share all of my knowledge. So I'll be talking about my trip to Costa Rica, and also within my trip, I spent 5 days of my 12 days in Costa Rica with a company called Wellness Baking. So I'll be interviewing them and having them on my podcast as well. So yeah, I think that that is a beautiful thing that you're showcasing that on your podcast, because there's so much ripple effect of change that happens. That's great. My final questions for you, Stephanie, are a little bit more personal, but I was just wondering, like, what careers and uh, what personal moments or professional moments led you to working with Fund for Teachers, and anything that you are desiring within your own career?
I sort of fell into Fun for Teachers in a total accident. I knew as a child, I have an aunt who's a teacher. My grandmother's a nurse. So I have a family that it's important to give back. And I knew that I wanted to do something that did good for other people. But I wasn't really, as a kid, you're not, what does that mean? So I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a physical therapist. I wanted to do those things. And I
Yeah.
actually a history teacher in high school who I'm a very quiet person, probably you can tell, very reserved. And she said, I think you would be good in education, but maybe not as a teacher. She just said, I
Oh,
think there's something else for you. And I'm also very creative. So I was like, what could that be? And I actually just temped at Fun for Teachers for a little bit, and I just loved it so much that I stayed, and they can't get rid of me. So now it's 20 years next year. I've done just about everything but fundraising here, and I just love it. I think if you can find something that takes the passion that you've had, like that lifelong goal of mine to do something to give back, I think that's really important. I think that another thing about Fun for Teachers that I find so important, as someone who even had a relative who was a teacher, I think that the general population in the United States does not understand the education system. I think that they don't understand what teachers do every day. I don't think they understand the pressures, and that we need more organizations like Fund for Teachers and more people who are more informed to help people understand what's happening and why it's important to invest in an organization like ours, why it's important to invest in your community. Because this is it. You get one shot at an education, and our communities are only better if we do that. And I feel like this is my chance. Even as a non-educator, I never became a teacher. This is my way to tell everyone about what it's like to be a teacher and why you should be investing in them. And even now as a parent, I have 2 kids in elementary school. I'm always shocked when I meet other parents that just have no clue. And I just feel like, a little part of me is like, well, did you know? Give me
Yeah,
the need I have. And I feel like, who wouldn't want to give to something like this? Who wouldn't want to invest in something like this? And so knowledge is, as they say, knowledge is power, and informing people and letting people know all the beautiful things that teachers do and how important they are and why they should be invested and why they're a professional, just like a doctor, a lawyer. That's important to me. And I think that's really what keeps me going.
that's really well said. My mom was a teacher, and so they would tell me when I was in high school, you should be a teacher. And I thought, no way, man, I'm not doing that job. That's my mom's job. So later in life, after working in publishing and then for a law firm and different other jobs that I had done, then I felt the calling to become a teacher. And when I was in my master's program, I think I was like 27, 30 years old. I called my mom several times and I was like, I only remember teaching from being a child in the classroom. And now as an adult, viewing it in a different light, it's a whole different ballgame. And I really had no idea the amount of work, time, care. We are that of an entrepreneur. And also since COVID and since really, to me, social media, the effects on students' lives, we are now, triple that of work of counseling and dealing with issues of our students. We're wearing all of the social worker hats. It just keeps piling on. But I think that when teachers feel respected, honored, seen, and like a professional, which is what Fun for Teachers does, it lights another fire within me. I felt that someone was noticing me, that I mattered, that I could make more of a difference. And then by being able to go to Costa Rica, I met people who are not interested in coming to America. They were saying that it sounded like a disastrous place. And so through the conversations with them, now I have 2 friends, Freddie and Luis, in Costa Rica, that signed up to get a visa and come to America. So I think there are bridges that can be healed. There's lessons to be learned, and that it can really affect our communities. It can make America the great place that we want it to be. Yeah. And that every child matters. I do not have children of my own, but donating to Fund for Teachers matters to me because I want the teachers to feel seen, heard, happy that they can thrive and give back into the classroom. My current students are so shocked and excited that they see that I'm going to Costa Rica, that I went to Coachella. They asked me, what was your business plan? How did you pay for flights? How did you save up and move this around to that? And so they're being inspired to think about travel and money. So yeah, I just can't say enough. You guys, please donate to Fund for Teachers. Please apply if you are a teacher. It will change your life. Whether you get the first chance or not, you just keep applying. And if you've already won like me, there are so many other beautiful options. Actually, I don't like to use the word won. I like chosen because we did work to put into it.
You earned it.
Yeah. But yeah, I just can't say enough. It's it's a great way to give back, especially this holiday season. Please donate to Fund for Teachers. You are making the world a better place. I just can't say it enough. Like I do. I literally cry because I know it feels so good in my heart to talk about Fund for Teachers. Stephanie, is there anything else that we should know? What are the platforms in which we can find you guys? Anything else you want to wrap up with?
Sure. I just want to, any educator who thinks they're interested in applying, to do so by January 23rd. Like Tess said, if you don't get it this time, try again. It is fairly competitive. But I would also say, if you have more questions, we have a national information session on November 20th at this aired by then. And then as Tess mentioned, there are opportunities for teachers of color for mentorship, making you feel like you could be part of this community because we see that lacking in ourselves. And we're also offering a similar program now for rural teachers to get more involved because we know that there's a total lack of resources for rural teachers. And so we want to make sure that you're aware of the opportunity and how you can work towards receiving it. So those are available on our website, fundforteachers.org. If you're interested in, as Tess was sharing about what teachers have done, what they do during the summer, how it's impacted their classroom and their school communities, We're on all the major platforms, Instagram. We're trying TikTok. Not sure we're doing well there, but we're trying TikTok. But I think Instagram and Facebook are really, if you're on social, those are the two places I would check out and listen to the podcast, Fun for Teachers, the podcast. You can find it on any streaming provider, or if you just go to our website, funforteachers.org, everything you need is there, including links to all of those terrific resources.
Awesome. All right, you guys, you heard it here. So please like, subscribe, share this episode so that more people can have the opportunity to become a Fun for Teacher fellow and also donate this season to Fun for Teachers. And every season, every year, donate to Fun for Teachers. So thank you for your time and have a great day, you guys. Thanks for listening to Breakthrough with Tess Timmons, your host. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.